Hi everybody, this video goes over section 1 of chapter 3, and here we are going to talk about simple interest loans and investments. We will present the simple interest formula. We will apply this formula to short-term investments and loans. We will use this formula to determine interest rates in a variety of situations, and we will use that information to discuss the issues associated with paydays and title loans. Okay, simple interest is essentially the basis for any financial tool that you might encounter. For example, compound interest and annuities all start with a basis of simple interest and applies different ideas to them. Simple interest by itself is basically used for short-term financial instruments such as loans or investments, and they have 4 primary components. The first component is the principal, and this is also known as the present value. It is the money that is initially deposited into an investment, or is the money that you originally get if you were actually taking out a loan. The second component is the interest, and this is the fee that's charged for the use of the money. If you have an investment, then it is the money that you earn from an investment. If it is a loan, then it is the extra money that you will pay at the end of a loan. The interest rate is actually nothing more than the ratio of the interest to the principal. It is often expressed as a percentage and is given over a period of time. And as a consequence, time is the 4th major component. Time is typically expressed in years. If you do not have a time value in years, you will need to convert it into years. Now back to interest. If the period of time is 1 year, then we have what we call annual interest, and that is the most common type of interest expression. And as a consequence, if you actually see a value for interest and the period of time is not stated, we will assume that the period of time is 1 year and that we have annual interest. This right here is the definition of simple interest. And basically, simple interest is the interest from a simple interest instrument is equal to the product of the principal, the annual simple interest in decimal form, and time in years. Now, how does that work? We can show this through an example. Here we want to find the interest earned on a loan of $800 at 8% simple interest at the end of 6 months. So the equation that we're going to use is the simple interest equation, which is I is equal to P times R times T. Just need to specify what P and R and T is. Well, P is the principal value or the original value of the loan, which will be $800. R is the interest rate charge. In this case, it is 8%. Now, once again, we cannot use R as a percentage. We need to convert it to a decimal, and we can do that by dividing 8 by 100. And that will give us 0.08. And then T is 6 months. However, we cannot work with 6 months. We need to convert this to a year. And we know that 6 months is equal to 1/2 of a year. And so with all this, we can actually figure out our simple interest equation. Once again, we start off with I is equal to PRT. However, P is equal to $800. R is equal to 0.08. And T is equal to 0.5, 1/2 of a year. Okay, the product of 800 and 0.08 is going to be 64 times 1/2, and that will be equal to 32. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Now, sometimes you will need to figure out what the interest rate is. And in this particular example, we want to use the formula for simple interest. Here it is. To find the interest rate, assuming that 360 days equals 1 year. Okay, well, we have I, we have P, we have T, but T's in days. We're going to need to convert that to years. So for T, that's equal to 270 days times 1 year over 360 days. And that will give us 270 over 360. Which equals 4/3 or 3/4 or 0.75 per year. Okay, so since we have this for T, now we can go ahead and work with our equation. We have I is equal to PRT. We know what I is, we know what P is, we know what T is. We need to figure out what R is, and we can do that by dividing both sides by P or by P times T. This cancels, and we have that R is equal to I divided by P T. Substituting our values, we have $171 for I. We have $3,000 for P. And then we have 0.75 for T. And if we do this computation, we will have that. Oh, and now remember, we are, and this will give us the interest rate in decimal form. To get percentage, we want to multiply this by 100%. And if we do, we will get the value of 7.6% for R. So we will have that R is equal to 7.6%. And this right here is the formula for a simple interest loan or a simple interest investment. If in the case of a loan, it will tell you how much you will have to pay back after the end of the loan, which is T years. And if this is a simple interest investment, it will tell you A, how much you will actually earn if P dollars was actually substituted into your account. And notice here notice there are two ways that we can write this. And also notice here that what we have is that your future value, the value if it's a loan, the value that you're going to have to pay is equal to the principal plus the interest. And of course the simple interest is PRT. That means we actually have a P that we can factor out, and if we do, we will have P times the quantity 1 plus RT. Now this formula is great for finding A and P. This formula right here, this form of the formula, is great for finding R and T. Once again, we have that A is the future value, or the amount that you will receive in the future if this is an investment, or the amount that you're going to have to pay back in the future if this is a loan. P is the principal. Once again, is the amount that you are going to originally get if it's a loan, or it's the amount that you deposit if it is an investment. R is the annual simple interest rate in decimal form, and then T is time in years. So let's return to our example of the $800 loan at 8% simple interest at the end of 6 months. And the question here is, well, how much will we owe at the end of 6 months? What will our future value be? Well, intuitively, we know that the future value is going to be equal to the principal plus the interest, and the principal, of course, is going to be $800. And the interest is going to be the answer from example 1, which is $32. And that will give us a total future value of $832. Let's hope we can actually get the exact same thing here. Now, our equation for simple interest is that the future value is equal to the present value times 1 plus R times T. Okay? And we know that P is equal to $800. We know that R is equal to 8%, which as a decimal is going to be 0.08. And we have that T is equal to 6 months, which is equal to 1/2 of a year. Or maybe we should write that as 0.5 years. So A is going to be equal to 800 times 1 plus R, which is 0.08, times T, okay, well, 0.8 times 0.5, that will be 0.04, so we'll have 1 plus 0.04 times 800. That'll be equal to A. And then we can write A as 800 times 1.04. And if you did knock that out in your calculator, you will indeed get $832. Okay, and there we go. Now this example is kind of an example of financial planning. So let's suppose you have a goal, whatever that goal may be. In this particular case, it is $5,000 in 6 months. And the question here is, well, if you want that $5,000 in 6 months, how much do you need to put away now so you can actually achieve that goal? Now this is a relatively simplistic goal, but for larger goals like maybe saving for a car, or saving for a house, or saving for your child's education, you would use the exact same line of thinking. How much would you need to put away now to have enough money to afford those things when the time actually comes? So here we have an annual interest rate of 10%, and we want to know how much to the nearest cent should we actually deposit so that our investment will be worth $5,000 in 6 months. So once again, this is the use of the simple interest formula. A is equal to P times the quantity 1 plus RT. In this case, we don't know what P is. That's actually what we're trying to find. A, we know in the future we were going to want $5,000. R is 10%. Of course, we can't work with percentages. We need to convert that to a decimal, and that would be equal to 10 divided by 100, which would be equal to 0.1. And then T is equal to 6 months. Of course, we can't express this in months, but we need to write this in years, and that will be 1/2 of a year, or 0.5 years. Okay, now with all this information, we can go ahead and substitute it into here. And we will have that 5,000 is equal to P, we don't know what that is, times 1 plus 0.1 times 0.5. That is going to be equal to P times the quantity 1 plus 0.05, and that will be equal to 1.05 times P. That will be $5,000. Okay, and if that's the case, then P is going to be equal to 5,000 divided by 1.05, and that will give us $4,761.90. For this example, we want to determine the simple interest rate on a particular loan. Now for this one, we have a principal of $1,900 is borrowed, and the loan's future value is $22,135. The duration of the loan is 39 weeks, and we want to determine the loan's simple interest rate. So the equation, once again, is going to be A is equal to P plus PRT. For problems like these, I like to work the equation like this. Okay, so we have that A, our future value, is going to be $22,135. We have that the present value is $19,000. And the duration of the loan, T, is equal to 39 weeks. However, there is 52 weeks in 1 year, so we can multiply this by 1, or 1 year divided by 52 weeks. And of course, weeks cancel, and we are left with 3/4 of a year. Okay, applying all these to our formula, we are going to have 22,135 is equal to 19,000. Forgot the 0 there. Plus 19,000 times R, because we don't know what that is yet, times 0.75. Now we can subtract 19,000 from both sides. That will give us $3,135. This cancels. 19, and this is an R, just want to make sure about that. 19 times 0.75 is going to be equal to $14,250, and that will be multiplied by R. We can now divide both sides by 14,250. These cancel, and we will have that R is equal to 3135 divided by 14,250. Okay, however, this is R as a decimal. We want to write this as a percentage, so to do this, we're going to multiply this by 100%, and that will give us 22%. Okay, now we want to talk about short-term investments. Short-term investments have durations that are less than 1 year, and as a consequence, they are usually expressed in terms of days. However, to compute the interest or the future value, we need to convert the days into years, and there's two ways of doing this. One way is to divide the number of days by 360. We actually call this a banker's year. And the reason why we like to use 360 is because it's a very easy number to work with. It actually has a lot of divisors. As a matter of fact, every integer between 1 and 10 is a divisor of 360, with the sole exception of 7. And therefore, in every problem in this section, we will assume that 1 year is equal to 360 days. Now, for other problems in other sections, we will assume that there are 365 days in a year. But nonetheless, whatever the conversion method is, it will be stated in the problem. And here is our next example, which is actually similar to your homework example. Now here we have Treasury bills, and this is one of the instruments that the United States Treasury Department uses to finance their debt. And in this particular case, we are going to buy a treasury bill for $9,828.74, and it will mature to a value of $10,000 in 180 days. So we're going to buy it right now for $9,800, and then at the end of 120 days, we're going to return it to the government, and they are going to give us $10,000. And the question is, how much simple interest is associated with that? Okay, well, let's start off with a simple interest equation, and that is the future value is equal to the principal plus the principal times the interest rate times the time duration of the loan. All right, well, A is $10,000. That's the how much the T-bill will be worth in the future. P is $9,828.74. That's how much the T-bill was worth when we bought it. $98.28.74. And then T is 180 days. Of course, we can't work with days. We could only work in years, and we're going to assume that each year has 360 days in it. So we can multiply this by 1 year divided by 360 days. And that will be equal to 0.5 years. Okay, so we have A, we have P, we have T, and we can now figure out what R is. So we can start off with $10,000 is equal to 9828.74 plus 9828.74 times the interest rate R times the time duration, which is 0.5 years. Okay, so we can subtract 9828.74 from both sides. These will cancel. And here we will have 171.26. 171.26. And that will be equal to 9828.74 times 1/2. And that will be 4914.37 times R. And then R is going to be equal to, well, we can divide both sides by 4914. We will have 171.26 divided by 4914.37. And now remember, this will be a decimal, so to get the percentage, we need to multiply this by 100%. And if we do, we will get 3.4848. Notice that the fourth digit here is greater than 5, so this will round up, and this will round up to 3.485%. For this one, we want to find the future value of a loan. So here we have a loan of $13,644, which we paid at the end of 13 months. And we want to know how much was paid back, principal and interest, if 4.8 annual percent was charged. Okay, well, that is simple interest. So that's going to be A is equal to P plus A is equal to P times the quantity 1 plus RT. All right, well, P is $13,644. R is 4.8%, but we can't work with percentages, so we're going to basically take our 4.88 and divide it by 100, and that will give us 0.048. And then for T, we have that T is equal to 13 months. We can't work with months. We do know that in 1 year, there are 12 months. And that will be equal to 13 divided by 12 years. So just a little bit over 1 year. All right, so with all this, we can go ahead and do our substitutions, and that will be that A is equal to our present value, which is 13,644, times 1 plus R, which is 0.048, times T, which is 13/12, and that will be equal to $14,353 and 48.8 cents, and that will round up to $14,353.49. Okay, in this particular problem, we actually want to figure out how much interest the person must pay for being late in one of their payments. And this question goes like this: how much interest will you have to pay on a credit card balance of $918 if it is 1 month overdue and if the annual interest rate is 24%? Okay, so this equation is nothing more than the interest is equal to the principal times the interest rate times the time. The principal is $918. The interest rate is 24%. We can't work with percentages, so we are going to write this as 24 divided by 100, and that will give us 0.24. Okay. The credit card, the duration is 1 month, which is equal to 1/12 of a year. And if that's the case, then our principal or interest is going to be equal to the principal, which is 918, times the interest rate, which is 0.24, times 1/12. And if you use that in your calculator, you will get $18.36. In this example, we want to find the minimum payment of an unpaid balance, probably on a credit card. And here we're going to assume that the minimum payment must be greater than either $17 or 2% of the unpaid balance. So the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out how much 2% of the unpaid balance is. And once again, we can't work with 2%, but we can work with 0.02. So 2% of the unpaid balance is going to be 0.02 times $1,395.16. And that will be equal to $27.90. Okay, now the minimum payment is going to be the greater of $27.90 or $17. And clearly this is greater, so this right here will be our minimum payment. In this example, we're going to deal with refund anticipation loans. Now, many tax preparation firms will offer clients basically a RAL, or a refund anticipation loan. And for a fee, the firm will give the client its refund when the return is filed, and then the loan will be repaid to the firm by the IRS. and thus the fee is really equivalent to interest charged on a loan. And this table right here shows the fee schedule for a certain RAL lender. And we want to use this schedule to find the interest for a $17,731 RAL, which is paid back in 29 days. Okay, well, since the RAL is 1700, we can come to this particular row and we can see that the fee is $69. So the interest in this particular case is going to be equal to the principal times the interest rate times the time. Okay, now we know what the interest is, it's $69. We know what the principal is, that is $1,731, and we know the time, that is in 29 days. However, we can't work with days, we need to convert that to years, and the one thing I forgot to mention is that we are going to assume 360 days per year. Okay, so T is equal to 29 days. However, we cannot work with days, but we know that in 1 year there are 360 days, and that will be equal to 29 divided by 360. We're just going to leave it like that for the time being. Okay, now remember, once again, we are looking for the interest rate, so I can divide both sides by P and both sides by T. These will cancel, and we have that R is equal to I divided by the principal times the time. And now we can make our substitutions. Okay, well, I is going to be $69. That's our interest. The principal is $1,731. And the duration is going to be 29 divided by 360. Now remember, this will produce for you a decimal value. We are interested in a percentage, so we're going to multiply this by 100. And if we do, we will get an interest rate of 49.4830%, 4830%, and that will round to 49.483%. And notice that interest rate's kind of high. Usually interest rates get as high as 24% for a credit card. This is actually more than twice that. And that brings us to our final example, which is that of payday loans. Now, payday loans are attractive for most individuals that have very, very poor credit ratings. Why? Because these guys do not require a credit check. However, what they do require is access to your payroll check. But since they don't require a credit check, basically anybody, no matter how bad your credit is, can apply for a payday loan. So essentially those that want a payday loan have serious financial problems, probably because not only do they not make much money, but they may have spent their money somewhat irresponsibly or whatnot. So people with very, very poor credit ratings basically apply these things. And the way this will work is that as follows. Suppose that you actually need some money now and you need it fast. You can borrow $500 from a payday loan provider. Now, if you expect to receive your paycheck in, say, 2 weeks, or in this case, 15 days, at that time, you will agree to pay the provider $550. And the question is, well, what is the annual interest rate? Well, once again, we can find that by using our simple interest equation, this one, where A is equal to P plus P times RT. Okay? Well, A is $550. P is going to be $500. The duration, T, is 15 days. However, we are going to assume that there's 360 days in a year, so we can multiply this by 1 year divided by 360 days. And now we have everything that we need to do to figure this out. We have A, we have P, and we have T. We just need to figure out what R is. So we will have that 550 is equal to 500 plus 500 times R. And this right here is going to be equal to 15 divided by 360. So we will have times 15 divided by 360. We can subtract 500 from both sides. These will cancel. Over here I will have 50, and that will be equal to 500 times 15 divided by 360 times R. And then I can multiply both sides by 360 divided by 500 times 15. I can do the same thing over here, 360 divided by 500 times 15, and this will cancel with that. I will have R, and that will be equal to, make sure we know they're separate there, 50 times 360 divided by 500 times 15. And now remember, this is a percentage, but this is only a decimal, so I would need to multiply this by 100. And if I do, what I have is 240%. And that is an amazingly large interest rate. That is actually 10 times more than what typical credit cards charge for an interest rate. And this is actually one of the problems of one reason why these types of loans are criticized, is because the interest rates are amazingly, amazingly high. And that is also why I hope you never find yourself in a situation where you need to take advantage of the services of a payday loan. They charge an excessive amount of interest, they do nothing for your credit rating, and basically they just keep you spiraling more and more into debt. Well, that is all that I have for this particular video. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. This is Bob Boyle, signing off.